Trump banned anime overnight, guys. It's gone forever. Not really. Here's the situation. Discussing film kind of really blew this out of proportion by not quoting this properly, so we'll go with what they said that got everybody in a huff here. Donald Trump claims he is placing a 100% tariff on all films produced outside of America that are brought into the country. Quote, any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. Okay? Now that sounds pretty inflammatory, but this is the whole situation. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Hollywood and many other areas in the USA are being devastated. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda. Therefore, I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% trade tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. Now, your first reaction might be like a lot of the people in the comments here, we'll look at them in a minute, that everything's over with, that anime has been banned and all this other stuff is gone forever and they won't be able to meet the hurdles and it's just this is some type of control mechanism to protect Hollywood. Hold it. It looks like 73% of you watching this aren't subscribed. Time to click that button. You know where to find it. You know, my first reaction was, of course, without thinking it through, I was like, oh no, this means that Netflix is going to have free reign on all the adaptations on anime now. It'll be the only way to get these properties out of Japan, is Netflix will be the only window they have. However, we have Daniela Panini here coming out and saying that Hollywood needs to do a better job at adapting anime. And your fears are correct about this, because here we are. Remember this?
First, I wanted to apologize to the fans that I did not anatomically match the Faye Valentine character.
He's just beautiful, right? Like, that's the kind of attitude that totally represents anime as a whole in these adaptations, because this is what you hear out of Japanese actresses that are playing the live-action versions of the anime characters that they're based on, of course, that their bodies don't match, and they apologize to the fans in such a catty, sassy way, or at all, because, you know, this is something that has to be discussed, obviously. It has to be brought out into the light. But I promised you some real big brain, galaxy brain takes on this one. And this was my favorite out of all the discussing film replies, all right? So you've got Rubby here, and I don't know who Rubby is. I'm out of the Rubby circle, okay? You're going to have to let me know what the whole circle Rubby is about, okay? All right? You're going to have to let me know all about that. Let me know down in the comments below if you know what a Rubby is. I don't. So anyway, he says, and please, can we just stop using y'all, okay? It's not the Civil War. It's not the Civil War. You're not drinking sweet tea on the back of a porch, watching the sunset over the cornfield. Can you just stop? All right? You all don't see what he's doing. You report it like a bad thing, but he's taking it back to everything being American made. It helps other countries too, because we all have to start creating again instead of relying on imports, okay? Now, here comes the galaxy brain guy, just woo, right in from orbit, all right? Just right out of space. The big brain Godzilla take here. Space Godzilla take. Except when the script is printed on a printer made in Mexico. The animation is done by Korean animators, the camera they are using is made in Germany, and the entire movie is being edited in a Japanese editing program on a computer with Chinese parts. What? What? No, that's not how this... Okay, so because it's made out of stuff that comes out of the land, does not mean that it is then the land, okay? So because, like, the little semiconductors are made with iron from, you know, somewhere in the world, most likely China, you know, just because it's made out of that stuff, because the acid pools for the lithium batteries in your, you know, in the phone used to tweet about the movie. What are you talking about? No, it's quite literally this, okay? Very simply put. And I'll show you this chart right here. The United States is the largest economy on the planet. Even if the European nations joined all together and became a single nation, they still would not come anywhere near the kind of just day to day, year to year, $30 trillion worth of spending that the U.S. does on its own, like what we spend as consumers outward. Okay, and this is just the stuff that's recorded. This isn't the stuff that's under the table. This isn't the stuff at yard sales, all that kind of stuff that likely would add maybe a few more billion on top, certainly not another trillion, but it's not as clear cut as this chart may make it. Now, as you can see, China, you would expect because they have so many billions of people, right? Just billions and billions of people on China. They're stacked up like sardines over there, right? Well, apparently they're not even close. They don't even come to being within $10 trillion with us, by the way. It's all the way down at 11 trillion. And that may not seem like a lot, but $1 trillion is a lot. To put this into perspective for you, okay? Imagine you're in one of those Uber Duber, get your car changed, have your baby here Walmarts, right? It's got everything under the sun underneath it. A huge Walmart, 18-acre Walmart, okay? Take just a $100 bill, regular old Benjamin, lay it down on the floor in the corner, clean out everything in that Walmart so it's just the walls inside. That's it. There ain't nothing else blocking it. Now fill that Walmart to the brim with those $100 bills completely. That's 18 acres worth of $100 bills, and that is $1 trillion. Okay, there's 1 trillion. That is when you take an Uber Duber Walmart and you fill it to the brim with stacked $100 bills, okay? 18 acres of stacked to the ceiling. That's about 20 feet high. Maybe more. Maybe 22 feet high. 25, something like that. Of $100 bills for 18 acres. Okay? That's what $1 trillion is physically. So when you see that 19 trillion, and when I say that it's 11 trillion between the difference here, that means a lot. That means a lot. Okay? Now, again, it drops even more significantly when you get into Germany, who is the next competitor behind us, and just behind them is India, and just behind them is Japan, tied with India, which is another curious thing to be happening in the world. What is going on? And so the United Kingdom is way down here. The next English-speaking nation is all the way down here. Okay, at 3.83 trillion. They are not even in the same stratosphere as the United States GDP. And that is why Donald Trump is dragging all of that stuff here, because we are sending way too much money out of our country for no good reason. Now, you might ask yourself, what exactly does this have to do with the movies? Well, here it is. Possum Reviews, pretty cool guy. You might want to check him out. Pretty cool guy. He brings up this back in April when the threat of China banning US movies came out. And he points this out. And he says, won't movies make less without the Chinese market? And he says, Hollywood needs to change their business model. It's not reasonable for every movie to cost upwards to $200 million and expect to make $1 billion. They can and should make smaller movies with lower goalposts. The movie industry has more competition than ever, not just from other movies, but from other forms of entertainment. Video games, right? Manga. It's a whole bunch of stuff out there now. The age of giant blockbusters is not sustainable. We are living in a time when a movie can make $500 million and be considered a complete flop. Try to picture that one, right? So take that Walmart I told you about, now cut that in half, right? Cut that in half. Now imagine that is $500 billion, okay? Right? So that would mean that you'd make 500 million movies in order to make that, okay? Just so that when you try to break down how much money is just being cycled around here, okay? It's crazy that these guys are burning this much money. Like $500 million doesn't seem like a lot these days because we talk about trillions and billions and trillions so much. $500 million is quite a bit of money still, okay? I know it doesn't seem like a lot in our TikTok, all these fancy mansions that cost $100 million, but you as one person could definitely do something with $500 million, okay? I'm just telling you, all right? Probably a better job than any Hollywood institution currently, which is why we're talking about this. By cutting off these tariffs, all right? By instituting these tariffs and cutting off these imports, right? What this forces into fruition are A, jobs for Americans, meaning this production of the media will have to have some kind of American influence upon it in order to have it avoid these tariffs, which means the anime production, video game production, because it's going to bleed over to that. They're not going to stop at movies. They're going to move into video games and anime, just about any form of entertainment coming through, the K-pop concerts, all that stuff is eventually going to catch these tariffs. And the reason being is that we are pushing very hard to impress foreign markets. Think about it. The last 15 years, when was the last time you saw a blockbuster movie that had anything negative to say about China? We're still fighting the Russians in Top Gear. Like, what? The Russians might be a threat in a couple of instances, but if the US were to go toe to toe with them, it's only the nuclear arsenal that we're concerned with. When it comes to raw firepower for not nuking each other, it's over with. The US has them beat. Same thing with China. China has numbers, right? But when it comes down to these trade wars, these physical trade wars, we will fight you over these tariffs. It's not going to happen. They don't have the firepower to resist it. And also, if they end up scoring and do end up having a problem with us that we end up being repelled from correcting, we're not going to have a market with them. So that's that $30 trillion in GDP that I showed you earlier from Forbes. Yeah, that disappears from being anything part of their market. They don't have access to that anymore. You see what's happening in China already. And so what this does is it brings all that back here. It forces that media production back home. So we're stopped trying to impress China. We're stopping trying to impress South Korea. We're stopping trying to impress Japan and Germany and the rest of Europe. We're done. This forces the attention of filmmakers back into the US. So they're not sponsoring films that are made much cheaper overseas. I'll remind you, Pixar, by the way, does a lot of their animation over there. Pixar, DreamWorks does a lot of their animation over there. Disney probably does too. Half of She-Hulk's butt cheeks were probably done in India. And that's got to stop. We can't be running around finding the next slave class to make our slop movies. Maybe if these things cost enough to produce, they'll stop doing these crazy stunts, right? This $200 million gets a lot done. How about if $200 million didn't get a lot done anymore? What if that only managed to produce something a little bit better than Gone in 60 seconds? Well, that would change Hollywood's attitude really quick now, wouldn't it? Right? We'd probably end up with a lot tighter budget movies. We'd probably end up with things that had a little bit more to do with American life than trying to appeal to a global market while avoiding stepping on China's toes. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I don't think this is as big of a problem as we think it is. In fact, I think we're going to end up finding there'll be a lot of loopholes for allies to find their way through. Then again, Doctor Who, to my knowledge, is produced in the UK. So if anything, that means that drivel's going to stop. The old stuff's not a problem. It's this new stuff that's plagued. And I'd argue with you that it started with the 11th. You can meet me in the comments about that. Matt Smith was the worst thing to happen to the Doctor. But meanwhile, I want to remind you guys that the reason why this is happening also is because Blackstone, BlackRock, Vanguard, and the woke identitarian billionaires from the USA, like Richard Branson and many others, are investing their money in purchasing media companies around the world. And you know what that means. So here we have Blackstone announcing a tender offer, which again, they did end up purchasing Infocom, Japan's largest digital manga distributor. They bought it outright. Blackstone are the people that go around driving up the cost of your house, by the way. They're the ones, not BlackRock, not to be confused with BlackRock. This is a separate evil entity, okay? Sort of separate. And so again, we'll go ahead and take a look at this one. Here we have it. 12 Chinese-owned media companies from Dick Clark Productions to AMC. Now, this was from 2016, and what's curious is that there isn't a new article that talks about this right now. I don't know what that means. Might be a good time to put that information together if you're out there looking for something to get clicks. But here we have it. We have it right here. So again, they're showing all this stuff right here. We got AMC Theaters. Now they, to my knowledge, have been bought back by the American investors. The Diamond Hands things kind of changed that dichotomy. We have the Carmody Cinemas. That is, major owned by Chinese company, the Wanda Group. We also have Legendary Entertainment. Those guys who did the Godzilla movies, majority owned by the Wanda Group. Dick Clark Productions, also owned by the Wanda Group. The Anui Ji New Materials Group owns Voltage Pictures. They did the Hurt Locker. And then again, you have like STX Entertainment, and of course, like it's kind of all over the place, but a lot of their movies are more of like the cultural commentary ones. They're very unfunny things, in my opinion. Not purposefully unfunny. I think the Crazy Rich Asian ones came from them, or they partially invested. Again, since 2016, these companies have been drawn down. Legendary bought out Wanda Group, but Wanda Group is still very influential in media making in the USA. Again, they were only bought out just about 6 months ago, back in 2024. So, again, not that recently that these Chinese companies had massive controls over the movie makers. And I'm not even talking about the people that make the streaming services, that make the content for streaming services, that make the news. Yeah, there's quite a few Chinese investment companies and Chinese private investors themselves that sit at very controlling levels of this. And the other thing I want to remind you guys is that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street collectively own 18% of Disney. They own 19% of Comcast, and they own 18% of Warner Brothers, and they own 16% of Paramount, and they own 22% of the Fox Corporation. Finally, they own 14% of Sony Group. Okay. Now, what that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is majority shareholder, meaning they can change things. They can say, we don't want to do this. We do want to do this. That is a majority shareholder that gets a say. Okay. The thing to remember about all those that I listed, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Blackstone, they all sit on each other's boards. Okay. And this tariff directly attacks that money mining that they're doing by shifting around work responsibilities to the cheapest slave market they can find to get it done. And that's what this starts to bring in, is these crazy investment hedge funds that go around running these companies in 7 different directions, chasing profits, chasing control of the market, and ultimately chasing a business utopia. And utopia, by its definition, can never exist. And finally, the folks in the comments that are still mad about this, I'm just telling you, straight to your face, go make anime for America. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. The Angel Studios just put out, I think it's Raphael. I think that's his name. I think that's the name of the anime, something like that. And it's an anime about an angel, and it's an alien world, distant future kind of setting, and this angel is not exactly a holy angel from God, but it is, again, from Angel Studios, the same people that brought you to Sound of Freedom. And it is done up in an anime, and I believe Johnny Young Bosch is playing the voice in the main character. So, again, go check it out. Go be part of it. Get this American anime thing started. And again, it's not all going to end up in Netflix's court. It's not all going to end up in, Hollywood's court. Hollywood will be forced to go through a massive change because they won't be able to rely on importing all of this work anymore, like I talked about earlier. Now's the time for independent stuff to rise up. If you and your friends have a concept and you guys can put together a 5-minute video that kind of does a pilot episode. Look into what a pilot episode is, guys, for real. Look into what a real pilot episode is. It's not great. It's really not. The effects are usually pretty bad. The sound's pretty bad. The music's usually pretty worse because, it's got the stock music applied to it. And again, it's just a pilot to demonstrate to people what it would look like. Then put it up on Kickstarter. I'm serious. It's not that hard. Give it a try. I'm working on my own concepts right now. I got 5 in the hole that I'm working on. Now is the time, because that's going to force investment back into the independent market, and this is good. This is what breaks the back of that MCU nonsense that won't stop. This is what breaks the back of this sequelitis that won't stop. This is what breaks the back of all these weird movies that have nothing to do with anything at all, but there's explosions, gratuitous violence, and all kinds of weird sex jokes strewn all over the place. Then the credits roll. And finally, with your fingers crossed, this will put an end to this psychotic mess of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But you'll have to let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, guys, good luck out there.